What's up, guys? Victor here with a brand new video. And after a recent interview with Laura Sanko, Dana White has basically confirmed that the UFC is actively trying to match up both Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje for a future matchup. Obviously, everything is being played out in the UFC lightweight division with Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker all in the same night. The main event and the co-main. So things are moving along brilliantly in the lightweight division in the UFC. Obviously, if the UFC does make this matchup, it's going to be a main event. This should be a main event on a fight night. And I think if the UFC is going to announce that matchup in the next couple of weeks, that fight will go down in late March or early April. As it is, it's still a great match to make, but both of these guys are trying to get back into the octagon. Both these guys barely took damage in their last fight. Obviously, Justin Gaethje lost to Khabib, but he did dish out the majority of the punishment in the first round, and he barely made it into 3 minutes of the second round. He got submitted by Khabib, and it wasn't a bad submission at all, so he's obviously ready to go as soon as possible. Charles Oliveira dismantled Tony Ferguson. He's ready to go, and that's definitely a very it's just the matchup that everybody wants to see. It's the matchup that makes the most sense. And obviously, if that fight does go down, Charles Oliveira is definitely one of the most improved fighters that the UFC has had in a very long time. He's been with the company since he's been 21 years old. He's 31 right now. So he's been with the UFC for 10 years. He started out in the featherweight division. And actually, no, he started his career out in 2008. 2 years later, he's in the UFC. So he's been in the UFC since 2008. Now it's 2020, so he's basically been there for, it's 2020, it's 2021, so he's basically been in the UFC for 13 years if you do the math, which I basically did wrong just a couple minutes ago, but it is what it is. He's been in the UFC for a very long time. Justin Gaethje's only been in the UFC for about 3 to 4 years, but he has beaten a good amount of guys. He's been some killers out there, man. He beat James Vick, who's basically not in the UFC anymore. He beat Edson Barbosa. He beat Tony Ferguson. He's beaten a plethora of guys. He's knocked out a plethora of guys as well. Justin Gaethje has one of the, basically, if not the most destructive power in that whole entire lightweight division. And he can definitely display it on that fight against Charles Oliveira. The only thing that Justin has to do is to use his wrestling, for crying out loud. He's got to make sure that Charles Oliveira does not get him to the floor. Khabib basically laid out the game plan of how to get Justin Gaethje out of there as quickly as possible, and that's to get him down. Justin Gaethje has zero BJJ experience whatsoever. He used to be an All-American collegiate wrestler in Colorado. He doesn't use any of it. He's only reliant on his kickboxing. And that's not going to get you too far in the UFC, even though he has had another title in another organization. He has had a crack at the belt against Khabib, and he blew that one pretty damn fast. And now he might have another chance in the future if he wins his matchup against Charles Oliveira. But Charles Oliveira is an overall mixed martial artist. He's amazing with his BJJ skills on the floor. He's amazing with his boxing. His boxing has caught up with his BJJ, so he's a complete mixed martial artist. If you didn't see his other fight against Kevin Lee, he displayed the boxing brilliantly. He got into the guard. He got into the space of Kevin Lee multiple times, just banging him with some nice shots, just banging him with some nice combos, the flying knees, the leg kicks, everything. Got him out there. He got him out of there in the second round, I believe, with the guillotine. That's the thing with Gaethje. If Gaethje even tries to go in for a takedown, he will most likely get caught in the guillotine. So Gaethje most likely has to utilize his wrestling as defense. That's the only thing that Gaethje's going to have to rely on when it comes to his wrestling. He wants the fight to be standing the whole entire time. He wants to pressure Oliveira, make sure he's moving him across the octagon the majority of the time, walking him forward, making sure that he's never being backed up by Oliveira, because when Oliveira is putting on the pressure, he'll get into your space, he'll get into your guard and just bam, mollywop you with a good amount of shots. Whether it's with the right or the left, whether it's with his jabs, his hooks, his kicks, his front kicks, his back kicks, his calf kicks, his head kicks. Oliveira is a tall, lanky guy, so he can pull off a lot of crazy things. Gaethje Like I said, he's relying on the power. He's got that left hook that he's relying on the majority of the time. And if it's not going to be the left hook, it's going to be the right hook. And Gaethje, he's not afraid to go to the body either. He does throw up some pretty good combinations, as we did see against Eddie Alvarez in the past. Even though he did lose that fight because he got a little bit lazy during the fight itself. He let his guard down a little bit too much. He paid for it, and then he did the same thing against Dustin Poirier. So obviously, both of these guys have faced the best of the best during their careers in the UFC. Charles Oliveira, who's had a very long career so far, even though he's a very young guy in the UFC, he's had a lot of success. I believe he's running a 7 or 8 fight win streak right now. Obviously, Justin is coming off of that loss against Khabib. Both these guys have a lot to fight for. Whoever wins this fight is most likely going to face the winner of Poirier versus McGregor for the title. And if I were Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier, I wouldn't want to be facing Charles Oliveira. If I were those two guys, I would be cheering Justin Gaethje on a lot. Not just a lot, but for the whole entire fight, depending on how it goes. But that fight will definitely end in the finish. And I believe that Charles Oliveira will get the job done on the ground. I believe he will get his quick submission of Justin Gaethje, depending on if Justin Gaethje can be able to sprawl as fast as possible, get a wizard in there, try to prevent the takedowns. If they're in a body lock position, I do believe that Justin is a stronger guy, but Oliveira, he's got a lot of speed. He's quick. He's agile, very, very athletic. Justin, obviously slower, but he's got the power. One shot can end it all, and that's been proven multiple times in the whole entire history of combat sports. But like I said, I believe that Charles Oliveira will get the job done. I believe that he's definitely going to work in some combinations. He's going to work in some nice jabs, and he will be able to get that distraction for that quick second for him to be able to take down Justin Gaethje, and Justin Gaethje is just going to have no answer on the ground. Apparently, he doesn't like to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He thinks it's too tiring. And the same thing for wrestling. He doesn't like to wrestle. He tires out too fast if he tends to wrestle. So why are you a mixed martial artist then? I don't understand that whatsoever. I know there's a lot of guys out there that don't wrestle. Obviously, someone who's kind of similar to Justin Gaethje but has a lot more success is Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou basically relies a lot on his kickboxing, mostly his boxing, because he tends to knock guys out pretty darn fast. Justin Gaethje, he does knock people out pretty fast. Obviously, he knocked out Edson Barbosa in the first round. He knocked out James Vick in the first round. He knocked out Tony Ferguson in that fifth round. So obviously, he's got a lot of knockout power. He did knock out he knocked out Michael Johnson in the second round of his UFC debut. So obviously, he tends to get guys out there pretty quickly, but I don't think he will be able to get Charles Oliveira out. Charles Oliveira has just improved so much over the years. He's done so much. He's faced so many people. He has so much experience. Justin Gaethje also has that experience as well. He used to be a champion for the World Series of Fighting, which is now the PFL, Professional Fighters League. But is that experience really going to overshadow Charles Oliveira? His experience? I don't think so. But all in all, I can't wait till this fight actually happens. I do believe it's going to happen late March or early April, wherever it does happen, Fight Island or here in the States. Obviously, if it does happen in the States, I don't really want it to be in Vegas anymore. Obviously, boxing is having an amazing experience in Texas. They've been in San Antonio for a very, very long time. Now, for about a couple of months, they're putting on some huge fights in the Alamo Dome. Why don't we do the same thing? Why? We might as well try going to Texas, if not Florida, because apparently Florida's back open, which is apparently what Jorge Masvidal has been saying on Twitter. But for me, Florida's basically always been open. There's also Arizona. There's a good amount of states that would be able to take that risk of bringing in the UFC and having them have multiple shows. If I were the UFC, I'd stay in the West. Obviously, Texas is pretty close to Nevada. Arizona is also close to Nevada, so stay in the West instead of having to travel too far away in the East until this pandemic is over. But we shall see what happens. Fans are officially going to be back next week as Calvin Kattar faces off against the former featherweight king Max Holloway in the Etihad Arena, the brand spanking new Etihad Arena, state of the art. if not one of the best arenas in the world right now. It soon will be. I call it the MSG, the Madison Square Garden of the Middle East, which it basically is, but you guys will see in the near future next week. I can't wait till these fights start going down. I appreciate you guys for watching this video. I'm going to continue to keep on putting content out there and more videos, obviously, as the UFC is officially back next week to start off this 2021 year. And hopefully it's a lot better than 2020 itself. Later, guys.